Over the past few quarters, Sweden's economic performance has lagged behind many other European countries, with higher inflation than the average European country and poorer GDP growth. It's true that the economic landscape in Europe isn't exactly rosy due to a slowdown in the global economy. But why is Sweden relatively worse off than the others? Could it be that Sweden is more sensitive to economic cycles than other European nations? Is the Swedish economy less resilient than its European neighbors, leading to deeper economic recessions? In this video, we are going to compare Sweden with Switzerland, a country that is seemingly weathering the economic storm better than Sweden. We thought it's worth comparing the two in terms of economic sensitivity. One factor affecting a country's resilience to economic swings is the diversification of its production. In simple terms, does the economy manufacture a wide range of goods or just a few? In the case of Sweden versus Switzerland, it's clear that Switzerland has a more diversified production base. Switzerland excels in sectors like financial services, pharmaceuticals, and chemicals, which maintain consistent demand. Regardless of whether the global economy is booming or facing challenges, people will always need financial services, medicines, and chemicals. Sweden, on the other hand, relies more on manufacturing sectors that are cyclically sensitive. Companies like Volvo, Epiroc, Cementa, SSAB, SKF, Scania, and Stora Enso see high demand when times are good, but are the first producers to notice when demand starts to fall. This is because most of these companies produce durable goods like cars and trucks or construction materials that you tend to invest less in when budgets tighten. Thus, the difference in production diversification suggests that Switzerland might handle economic fluctuations better. Sweden and Switzerland share the characteristic of being small open economies, heavily reliant on trade. When imports become more expensive and demand for exports drops, it hits both countries hard. As a Swede, it has been hard to miss the fact that the Swedish krona is doing terrible right now, as its value has been declining for months, making imports more costly. Conversely, the Swiss franc is thriving, making imported materials cheaper for Swiss consumers. Additionally, Switzerland has a broader range of trade partners beyond Europe, as it isn't a part of the EU. This diversity means Switzerland has more options when it comes to export markets in Asia, Africa, and North America compared to Sweden, which relies heavily on intra-European trade. Hence, Sweden is more dependent on a robust European economy, which can be a double-edged sword as it allows for lucrative trading routes, but only as long as Europe is buying what Sweden is selling. However, Sweden have a larger public sector and a more extensive welfare system compared to Switzerland, which can be an advantage during economic downturns. Public consumption, including spending by municipalities, regions, and the state, constitutes about half of Sweden's total GDP. Public consumption tends to be less sensitive to economic cycles. As a matter of fact, it is often increasing when times are tough, acting as an economic boost. Switzerland, in contrast, relies more on private consumption, which sees the most significant drops during a downturn. Sweden's more generous social safety nets also mean that households can spend more in the event of a job loss, which helps sustain consumption during tough times. So Sweden's substantial public sector suggests it has some tools that may handle economic downturns better than Switzerland. But Sweden's advantage is somewhat negated by its higher inflation. The government might want to go on a spending spree to finance essential infrastructure projects, which would boost demand for the Swedish industries that was mentioned earlier. However, stubbornly high inflation puts a spanner in the works. Most economists agree that if the government spending spree would become reality, the inflationary problems in Sweden will become even worse. As long as inflation remains Sweden's top concern, the concern of an economic downturn will have to take a back seat. So what have we found? Can we explain the difference between Sweden and Switzerland in terms of economic sensitivity? We would argue we can. A significant portion of Sweden's production focuses on products that see high demand in good times but lower in bad times. Switzerland, on the other hand, has a more stable demand for its diverse range of products, and its broad global trade network offers a buffer against European economic troubles. Sweden's substantial public sector and social safety nets might give it an edge in downturns, but high inflation limits the government's spending power. So it's not surprising that Switzerland currently reports more positive economic figures. However, we should not be surprised to see that the tables have turned in 3 to 4 years. An economy that is sensitive to economic cycles sure leads to lower lows, but it also means higher highs. Therefore, Sweden should still have high hopes for coming out stronger on the other end.